Today I'm going to show you how to replace the power steering and alternator belts on 94 to 97 Accords.
Now the reason why I'm replacing these belts, you'll see this belt's the power steering pump belt. It's come off the pulley by exactly one rib, and it's running on the rim of the crank pulley. This instantly destroys the belt.
The symptom on this vehicle was a clicking sound at idle caused by the belt riding back and forth on the crank pulley. If you look closely, you can see the outermost rib that's riding on the pulley ridge has been widened. The belt jumping a rib or falling off can be caused by pulley misalignment, insufficient belt tension, a piece of debris getting between the belt and pulley, or bad bearings in any of the accessory pulleys. Bad bearings can cause the pulley to wobble, which can partially or completely throw off the belt. In this case, the tension, alignment, and pulley bearings were good, so I can only surmise a piece of debris threw the belt off.
First, we want to get this power steering pump belt off. Loosen this 12mm fastener. And loosen the second 12mm fastener. Then loosen this 10mm tensioner bolt until you have enough slack to pull the belt off the power steering pump pulley. Loosen the bolt up a bit. Then just push the pump down. Then you can grab the belt and pull it off. Then you can remove the belt from the crank pulley. You're going to have to twist it to the side to get enough clearance.
Here's another look at the bad belt. You can see the widened pulley rib to the right.
It's a similar process to remove the alternator belt. You're going to have to loosen two fasteners first. One of them is over here. You can see it right there. That's a 14mm head, and the other fastener is located right below it. Right there. I'm going to loosen the top 14mm fastener first. You don't have to remove it, just loosen it up. If that fastener is giving you trouble and doesn't want to come off, get a 14mm socket, 1/2-inch drive on a breaker bar, and you'll be able to break it loose. Now I'm going to loosen the final 12mm fastener. It's a bit tight, but in this orientation, you can get your socket on there. Just enough room to swing your ratchet. Now the two fasteners are loosened, loosen this 10mm bolt to relieve the tension on the belt. Once you loosen it past a certain point, you should be able to turn it by hand. Loosen it a bit by hand. Then to relieve the tension, push down on the alternator. Until there's enough slack to pull the belt off the pulley. So continue that process, loosening the bolt and pushing down. You have to pull up on the alternator a bit, again, to get enough slack to continue loosening the bolt by hand. Then you can pull the belt off the alternator pulley. Then let it off the AC compressor pulley. Give it a little twist, slide it by. And get it off the crank pulley by again giving it a little twist like this. So you can clear the body, slide it off. The reason you have to give the belt a slight twist to remove it is because, as you can see here, is the AC compressor pulley. There isn't much clearance between the end of the pulley and the body. There also isn't much clearance between the crank pulley and the body. So just twist the belt to the side a bit to get enough clearance to pull the belt up and off.
It's a good idea to check the bearings on the alternator, AC compressor, and power steering pulleys. Grab the pulley, rotate it, and listen for any noise. Then try wiggling the pulley up, down, side to side, and in and out. If the bearings make any odd noises or there's play in any direction, the accessory should be replaced.
Now the first thing I like to do is I'm going to feed the belt down to the crank pulley. I'm going to twist it like this so it will clear the body. Then I'm going to feed the belt onto the pulley. Make sure it's not on the power steering half of the crank pulley. Then put it onto the AC compressor pulley. Twist it so it clears the body. Okay, fell off the crank pulley. I'm just going to pop it back on. Then you could just lift it up, put it onto the alternator pulley, make sure that the belt hasn't come off the other pulleys. Lift it up and work it on. Check all your pulleys, making sure the belt is properly seated. One thing to be aware of when you're putting the belt on to the crank pulley, make sure that the belt runs under this tensioner bolt for the timing belt. If it's running over it, you won't be able to lift the belt onto the alternator pulley. As you can see, this belt has no tension on it. Quickest way to get tension on it is to grab the alternator and just pull it up. And you can see now we have a little more tension. And what that saves us doing is wasting all that time using our ratchet to achieve the same result. Now just tighten the tensioner bolt by hand until you can't tighten it anymore. Then you can put your socket on there and start actually tensioning it.
You want to get this just right. Not enough tension will cause excessive belt wear due to the belt slipping over the pulleys. It can also cause bearing damage. The friction from the slipping belt will create heat that will be conducted from the pulley directly into the bearing. This can boil the grease inside and lead to bearing failure. A belt that's too tight is just as bad, as it'll put too much stress on the bearings, which can cause them to fail too. I personally tension the belt by feel. Push down firmly with one finger and you shouldn't get more than a ½ inch of deflection.
Here's a look at the deflection with the belt properly tensioned. Pushing pretty hard with one finger. Then once you're happy with the tension, just snug up the two fasteners. Then you can pop in the power steering belt. Put it down with the crank pulley. And then twist it. Clear the body. And feed it down past the front of the pulley. And there it is. Then just pull it up and over the pulley. Check the crank pulley, make sure the belt is not sitting on the ridge. Then tension the power steering pump belt. I'm using a 1/4 inch drive ratchet and a 1/4 inch drive 10mm socket.
Use a 1/4 inch drive ratchet to reduce the amount of torque you can apply to the tensioner bolt. If the power steering pump reaches the end of its upward travel, which is very easy to miss with a 3/8 inch drive ratchet, and you keep tightening, you can snap it.
Here's a look at the deflection of the new belt properly tensioned.
Same thing with the power steering belt. About a ½ inch of deflection is good.
Now snug up the lock nuts.
If when you start the vehicle up you hear a squealing noise for a few seconds, the belt is a bit too loose. If the squealing continues after the engine is started, it's very loose. If you don't hear any noise, leave the engine running and have a look under the hood to make sure the belts are running on the pulleys properly.